whole list of things so far.
Hold on a second, I have a question.
Yeah.
How much is it again?
You're the best. This is why I wanted you. But we talked about it being free and how it's personalized. Barbara just showed you the data-driven button. It's all based on that. Is based on how a student did. You get this because you did that. Differentiates instruction. She also talked about how it differentiates it, so that there's students that are working here at this level, some at this level. It motivates students. How many times did she say, my students came in, we got to talk about number 12? I mean, how often do you get that in your classroom when kids are coming in with homework? They don't do that unless they're excited about it in some way. It's holding students accountable so they know how they're doing. It's communicating. We already showed you how it communicates with the parents and with the students because they can look at their grade, talk about the saving time. Who doesn't like more time? And the tutors. And this is where I'm going to go into the tutoring thing. Now, you're going to love this. If you love that, this is so much better. This is called Skill Builder. Now, here's how the Skill Builder works. There have been some problem sets that have been created. They're called problem sets, which is the roots of the problems that have been created. And these problem sets, you can create individual questions, or you can create one question that's a variabilized question, and it gives you a bunch of the same questions just with different numbers. So let's say you wanted your students to work on adding and subtracting integers. So one of the ones that I asked her to bring up for me was the subtraction of integers. So if we look at that problem set, yeah, let's look at the problem set first. So students are going to get questions that are all very similar. So this is my list of questions. If I come over on this side here, if she doesn't scroll too fast, you'll see that they're all pretty much set up the same way. The same one there. But they're just different numbers. Now, it's basically practice. This is practice for things that students have already learned. So I want to know how well my students understand this material here. So what I'll have them do is I'll have them take a skill builder problem set. Now, here's how the skill builder works. You can set the parameters on this. The default parameters are this. Students need to get 3 questions correct in a row without using a hint to test out of that problem set. If they don't get 3 in a row, they have a maximum of 10 in a day that they can do. At the end of 10, if they haven't got 3 in a row, it says, try again tomorrow. Now, here's why it says that. How often do you want a kid just butting their head against the wall with the same type of problems? You want to force them to ask questions of you. Like, I just did my 10 last night, or I just did my 10 in the computer lab today, and I don't know what I'm doing. Can you help me? They also send automated reports to the teachers. I get an automated report that says, so-and-so probably needs help with this problem set. It's great because I'll say, oh, wow, she worked on this and she's worked on it for 2 days. She's seen 20 problems. She's only got 2 right. She needs help. So I'm seeing right away, oh, I need to help them with that, and that's going to help me a lot. Now, if they use a hint, let's say that your student is in the computer lab or they're at home and they're looking at the problem like, I really don't know how to solve this. The hint is there to help them. It's not a teaching tool, it's more of a reminder tool. Oh yeah, when the teacher said we have 2 negatives together that equals a positive, and you can go through all of the hints, the last hint will give them the answer to the question. So if they can't get through with the hints, the very last hint will tell them what to type in. But it's not right because they used a hint. They have to get 3 right in a row without using a hint. So after they've done this, after they got their 3 right in a row, you'll say they test out of it. Now, if it just ended there, we could say this program was good. Let me show you how it's great.
Let me finish. I almost got 3 right now.
The pressure.
Alright.
Okay, so she got her 3 right in a row. Now, once they have, what's that?
This is the item.
Yeah, and this is the item report. We can tell by the green checks which of my students have mastered this, which has not started. That's me, plain student. I didn't do this one. Shame on me. We can also see how many, can you scroll back up again with those columns, how many days they've been working on it, how many minutes they work on it, and how many problems total they solve. So for example, Sean Burke here, 24 problems before he finally mastered it. So he was a kid that I actually went back to that saw this and said, you need some help, let me show you how to do this, let's find out what you have this problem.
But here's 59 seconds.
59 seconds. Boom, boom,
Boom,
boom,
boom, boom,
yeah.
Don't bother me anymore, Mr. Burnett.
So here's where it makes it great. So you test out of it, you think you're all done, but they have created created a part of this program called the reassessment. It's ours automatic reassessment relearning system. I always can never remember that, but I always call it ours. So you can set the parameters for this. My parameters that I set is that once a person has mastered a problem set or tested out a problem set, they will see a question from that problem set on a reassessment test in 7 days. If they get that question correct, then they will see it again in 14 days from that test. And then they will see it again in 21 days. And then they will see it again in 40 days. Once they have done that 4 times on the reassessment test, plus the first time that they got it right, they've now seen that type of question 5 times. Once they get it right 5 times, the system will say, okay, we're convinced you know this, and they will test you again. Now I want to actually talk about this report here. This is the ours report, our reassessment report. I actually want to talk about this girl right here, Dina Rowe. Dina's one of my favorites, and here's why she is. She came to me first week of school, so Ms. Burnett, I have never received anything higher than 65 in math. And this girl clearly has a mom at home that's saying, you know, you got to do your work. Well, the way we do our work is we go to the computer lab. If they don't finish it in the computer lab, they have to go home and finish it up. So if she's not getting her 3 right in a row, she's starting to have some work that she needs to finish up. But here's a girl that struggles. Normally people that struggle, they're not going to go home and practice because they don't have really a place to practice. She's going home and practicing this work. This is her reassessment test on something that she took back on just a few days ago.
Yeah.
So you can see on this report whether or not she got fraction problem correct or wrong, what her answer was, what the correct answer was, what level of reassessment she's at. Like this one, this is her first reassessment one, this is her third, and when she'll be reassessed on it again. Can you go to the third, 1, 3, and the one right below it? We're going to look at her report from there. The reason why I want to do this is because the problem set we looked at, which was subtracting fractions, or subtracting
Integers.
Okay, so this is the one we just looked at. Now she is only 2 steps in. We did this at the beginning of the year, but she's still having trouble with this, so this is something that I have to work on. She typed before, and we can look at what the question was. That she typed before, 8 minus -12. She's forgetting to change the row to positives and add them together. So I can go back and I can talk to her and say, listen, I know where your mistake is. When you see 2 negatives next to each other, you got to turn them over to positive. This is something that is creating conversations with my students that weren't happening before. This wasn't happening before I started using this. This is allowing me to talk to students and find out exactly what they know and what they don't know. Now think about this. You go and you teach a topic. You give them homework, you give them a test, you have some sort of an idea of what they understand. But then you move on. You might test them at the end of the quarter on something, but you're not really having them practice what they don't know. This is doing this. This is having them practice. It's creating conversations. It's having the students work on things that they need help with. Now, I've only had, this is my 2nd full year of using this. My MCAS scores went up considerably last year. Now, this might be just a fluke of that one class, but over time I'm going to find out whether or not this extra practice is helping the MCAS scores of my students, or it's just a fluke of that one class.
And this is a good time to that point is another reason why it is free is because WPI is a research institute. We believe in research and we use the platform to do research. You know, so that the platform for us is a research tool. And we can throw together research studies and do randomized controlled trials quickly and without really getting in the way of what's happening in class. And so that's really one of the main benefits. That's why, you know, Neil's life would end if he couldn't like use assessments for research. So if you start telling it and stuff, you can't do that. So it's a tool for whoever wants to use it and how they want to use it, and that's one of the things we use it for. We're running a little study actually in Andrew's class where with reassessment where half the kids just see it, they get 3 right in a row and they are done for months. The others get 3 right in a row and then they get reassessed and they get their little reassessed. But the green there says that she went back and did 3 subtraction problems right in a row. She finally got to 3 right in a row. And we could go look and probably, there's more reports. You can find out how many it took her and that sort of thing. But what we're going to do is we're going to take the randomized group. We've got one group gets the R's and one group doesn't. And then 3 months later, we're going to give them a post-test and see I suspect they're gonna know more, but the question is also how much more? Is it, and all the statistically significant and all that fun stuff, so that's one of them, yeah.
Two totally different questions. You see, one answer is a sentence. You can check.
That's multiple choice.
That's
I
multiple
mean.
choice.
Oh, okay, that's multiple choice, okay. And the second question, does everyone here is a middle school teacher, or is anyone high school teachers?
The high school students, we are junior, senior high school in Millbury, the high school teachers in high staff position.
Okay,
Um,
just wondering, because that is.
Right, and if we have time, I'll show you some of the content we have and what's currently built, but as you see, people like to build their own. We have trouble with things like answer field is basic expressions, so when you start to get into the signs and square roots. With square roots, we tend to do rounding, so there's a little bit of issues with that box, where you put your answer when you start to get into the higher level math. But we do have a gentleman who's using assessments at Boston, he's at Boston Latin, and he's writing a whole curriculum as an NSF grant, and he calls assessments his glue, and he's using it for an AP stats class. And then we also have a woman who's a professor at Worcester State who uses it for her stats class. And so it's what you want to do. It's time. It's about time. You know, it's about finding your time. We've had grants that said, okay, we're going to build a 10th grade MCAS. Okay, then we have time to build that 10th grade, good money and time to build 10th grade MCAS. We've had other grants that say 6th grade MCAS and so on.
So the skill builder, is that just a system for handling the interaction between the student and the web page, or is it? I mean, in other words, do you input your questions, or are there banks of questions that are part of skill builder?
Andrew, we hired Andrew and he built them.
Well, I built them, they did hire me, when I first met them, they hired me to build the variableized questions, but there's so many that are already currently built that it's something you can go in and look at the content that's there and use it.
So we have a lot of skills. We're trying to get, we have 100, we track, the systems tracks 140 skills from 4th grade to 8th grade. It's a list of skills that we've come up with, and our goal is to have a skill building set for each one of those skills. And so we're about halfway there. I have
But
work
they also have
studies doing
some,
it.
they have high school stuff as well, there's done in there as well, so I mean,
Yeah.
it's not just 4th through 8th. Also, I just want to point out that if you package right here, I don't have, last year, I had students just do the stuff on white line paper and toss it in the recycling bin on the way out the door. I have now organized it and have them do their work. I have them write the assistant number. You can just click on test drive with any one of these, really doesn't matter. Each number of the problem has an assistant number. There's 23737. I have them write that down in the problem box. That's why I have them write the number. So when they come back to me and they say, I really didn't understand this problem, and they don't really have a clear picture of how they wrote it here, I can simply just type that in, go over it with them and say, okay, here's how you do that problem. So it's nice, once you get them in the habit of doing that, it works out very well, and this is what I grade them on. Here's how I motivate them. I grade them simply on completion, because I have to get 3 right in a row. So they're going to have to get something right to complete it. So they get a completion grade on it. If they complete it, they get a 100. If they don't complete it, they get a 0. It's as cut and dry as that. So I think I'm all set. So I'm going to